Good afternoon and welcome back to Dr. Logic Awkwardly Does Logic. We're on our third and final soundness proof for the basic rules of every modal system that we're going to look at. The rule of necessitation. Its proof is very easy, so let me just bring up the whiteboard and we will jump right in. So the rule of necessitation says that, well, first, let me spell it properly. Necessitation, there we go. It says that if you can prove in your proof system some formula phi, then you are allowed to stick a box on the front of it. So every theorem is going to be necessary. To prove the soundness of this, what we want to show is that validity is preserved. So if our initial theorem phi is in fact valid, i.e. true on all possible worlds in all possible frames on all possible valuations, then necessary phi will be true as well. So proof of soundness, that's what we're going to show. We'll start off by assuming that phi is in fact valid, because if it isn't valid to start with, there's no validity to preserve. So assume that phi is valid. And then now suppose that necessary phi is not. So we're going to assume the opposite of what we want to prove and try to get a contradiction. So that means that necessary phi is not valid. If necessary phi is not valid, what this means is that there is a model, which is a frame, WR, along with the valuation V, and there's going to be some world W in that model where necessary phi is not true. This means that there is at least one world, let's call it V, and this world is accessible from W. So if necessary phi is false here at W, then this is only going to be the case if W can see some world V and phi is false there as well. So there's at least one world V such that WRV and phi is not true at V. But then this contradicts our initial assumption that phi was actually valid and therefore true at every world and every model. But we have just found a world, namely V, where it's false. So then it follows that phi is not valid, contra our assumption. So anytime that phi is valid, it's true at every world. This means that every world that can see any worlds is always going to make phi true, and therefore necessary phi has to be true at every world as well. So there you have it, the proof of the soundness of necessitation. And that's it. This is now all of the basic foundational stuff, all of the definitions, the rules, the background material that we need. In the next video, I will define our first logical system, system K, named for Kripke, and I will give you some axioms and we will start proving some theorems. So join me then. Until then, take care. Cheers.